Welcome back to All Things Money. I'm your host, David Blain, and today we're talking about an article that appeared in the Journal over the weekend, the Wall Street Journal, The Price of Taxing the Rich. And this is a great topic to explore. If we can stay out of the political argument of, taxing the wealthy just because and what's fair and what's not, and what we want to focus on is what's financially smart way to do things. Before we continue on with this, let's give out the phone number here, which is 252-633-0107. During normal business hours, please give us a call if you have any comments or questions on the show, topics you'd like to see addressed. You can also email us at allthingsmoney@dlblain.com. That's allthingsmoney@dlblain.com. And please visit us on the web, www.dlblain.com. There you'll find information about myself as well as my firm and archived copies of the show. So back to the topic at hand. As we left the last segment, I was explaining how in business or life in general, it's generally not good to be totally dependent on one star athlete or one big customer if you're in business. And that's what a lot of states have done. They've created their taxation schemes as so regressive that they're hitting the top 1% of their population for 30, 40% of their revenue. And we're seeing that the states that are in big trouble today are the most egregious violators of this principle. So let's look at some numbers here. California, about 44% of the state's revenue is made up by income taxes. And their highest tax rate is 10.3%, and it kicks in at $1 million. And they have 45% of the income tax receipts are paid by the top 1% of the population. Now you look at California, and you've got a bunch of Hollywood people that make a ton of money. You've got Silicon Valley, Apple and Cisco and, Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. So you have some tremendously high earners in the state of California, but their taxation, what they have done is that 45% of all income taxes are dependent on 1% of the population. And so what happens is when you have an economic downturn, number one, people with high income tend to have very volatile incomes. That from one year to the next, it's not like they go to a job and they get paid, okay, here's your $100,000 year after year after year. If you're in Silicon Valley and you have stock options and maybe you sell a company and start a new company, and so you have these, I made $50 million this year, and the next year you make nothing. Well, in economic downturns, these sort of variations are magnified. And these high income earners, their income goes way down. Now, I'm not asking you to feel sorry for them. They earn $50 million one year and $20 million the next. What we're discussing here is what's smart tax policy. So number one, let's take their income is very volatile. And number two is they don't just sit around and take the high taxes. They move. Currently, there's a number of states, Florida, Texas, Nevada, Washington, Wyoming, South Dakota, and Alaska, that have no income tax. Now, if you earn money in California, you can't escape California taxation if you're a resident, but you can always move. You can move your business. You can move you to someplace like Florida and not have any income tax anymore. So two things. One, the people just don't sit around and take the high taxes forever. They leave. And number two is during times of economic distress, their incomes are much more volatile, and so the incomes go down. Hence, the revenue to the state goes down, and you have all sorts of problems. New York is the same way. New York, the numbers, they rely on almost 57% of their revenues come from individual income taxes. They have an 8.97% highest tax bracket that kicks in at $500,000. And the top 1% of people in New York pay 41% of all the revenue. Same thing there. You have a lot of Wall Street types that I know get bashed a lot, but their incomes went way down, and so now New York has some serious problems with their budgets. Where does North Carolina fall in this? I didn't have time to get the exact numbers, but according to this journal article, they rely on between 20 to 30% of the income tax from the top 1% of earners in North Carolina. There are several states that rely on less than 20%. So between the ones that rely on less than 20% and the no tax states, it's probably somewhere between a third and half of the states. I would say that the ones that rely on over than 30% is maybe a half dozen or so. But these are the states that have the biggest problems with their budgets going forward. So we're going to come up on another break here in a minute. So I want to take this segment to highlight the problem, the problem relying on the top 1% of income earners. Their income is very volatile. And number two, they leave your state. This also applies at the federal level. These same statistics apply at the federal level, the over-reliance on the top 1%. And these people are leaving in droves to, they're incorporating in the Bahamas and Bermuda and Costa Rica, and they're moving. They're simply leaving the country to avoid taxes. There have been some great articles recently on GE and Google and how they pay extremely low taxes because they incorporate offshore. So we'll continue with this topic when we come back, but let's take a short break now. So for All Things Money, I'm your host, David Blain, and we'll be right back.